Good morning, Ronnie. Let's get started.
Okay, Gary. We're going to talk about Word today and some automated features that will help you to speed up your ability to do things in Word. So I'm going to maximize this document and hope everybody can see it. And let us know if you're having difficulty
You can do the chat section.
Seeing or hearing. Yeah, there should be a chat section. And you can let us know if there's a problem here. Otherwise, I assume everyone can hear us. Okay, so here's a document in Word, just an ordinary document. And one of the things that you sometimes need to do is to take a standard piece of text and use it in a variety of different ways and different places. And instead of having to go back to the original place where you had that text embedded and copy it and paste it, I want to show you how you can more readily, simply, with a couple of clicks, pop that text in. So if I select this document, this paragraph, and let's say this is my descriptive paragraph about my company. This is a real estate company I'm using as an example. And I wanted to make this a standard piece of text that I can use in this document, in other places, and in other documents. So I would go to the Insert tab on your ribbon, and over on the right in the text grouping, there is something called Quick Parts. And if I click on Quick Parts, one of the choices I have is to save the selection, so that paragraph that I've selected, to the Quick Part gallery. And I'm going to click on that. And I have the option of giving it a name, otherwise it's just picking up the first couple of words. And I'm going to say company intro. I'm just going to give an example of company intro. And notice it's putting it in its building blocks, and we'll see what that is in a minute. And I'm going to say OK. So if I now wanted to go to the end of that document and for some reason wanted to pop in that text, I could go to Insert, which I'm still there, and I could click on Quick Parts, and notice there's the text with the name company co-intro, and if I click on it, there's my text. Okay, if I were to create a new document and I wanted to use that company intro, I could go to Insert, Quick Parts, and there's the text and it pops it right in. So that's pretty convenient that you can have that in your list of things to do and always have it available. Now here's another example of a document, and this one has a logo, something that might also be, you might want to reuse in various documents. And so I'm going to again go to Insert, and in the Quick Parts, I'm going to say save the selection to the Quick Parts gallery. I'm just going to call it logo, and I'm going to say OK. So if I go back to my new document, which should be here, and I want the logo on top of it. Whoops. You know what? This is not the new document. This is the other document. So let's do this one. The other one was the end of the document. Okay, so if I go to Insert and Quick Parts, oh, it does not have the logo. Why not? Let's see. Something is amiss here. Okay, so here's my logo, and here's my Quick Parts, and here's my logo. Okay, so let's see if we create another new document, and I go to Insert, Quick Parts, there it is. Okay, so it's documents that were created afterwards, which is where you probably want to use it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my document that had the text in it. Okay, and this was the bottom of the document, and here's the top. And another way that you can put things in the document that could be handy for you is, let's say I wanted to put in a date here, but I wanted it to be a dynamic date, not a static date. And I could also use Insert, and under Quick Parts, I could go to Fields. So there are lots of different fields that you can put into a document. Fields means they're coded information. And if I were to go to the time and date field, and I have lots of different times. I could go do the create date, the edit date, the print date. I'm just going to say date. And I'm purposely going to choose a time, a date and time that has seconds in it because I want to show you that it's dynamic. So if I do that, we now see it's 10:06 and 31 seconds. If I right click on that and say update the field, it's 39 seconds. So that is how you know it's dynamic. And I can also right click and say toggle the field codes, and that is actually the coding for the date. And I can toggle that back and forth. And there's also some keyboard shortcut to do that as well. Okay, when you create a document, there's certain information like who created it and what date it was created and so forth that is automatically saved with the document. And one of the things that we can do is, again, through quick parts and field, if we go to all, we can find out who the author is, and whether I want it first lowercase or uppercase, I don't really care, but I can say okay, and the software manager happens to have been the creator of the document. And how you can see some of those different properties of the document, if I go to File here, notice on the right, these are properties, and it indicates the software manager as the author. It indicates the date it was modified, created, how many pages, words, etc. So it gives you lots of different information. You can also drop down next to properties and say advanced properties, and there are even some you can fill in yourself if you would like to put keywords or the category of the document, and that could be used in the future to help search for things or categorize things. You can even have the property show as a panel above the document like this, and any of those fields that you filled in would show, as well as some of the basic ones. And once you don't need that panel anymore, there's an X to close it all the way on the right, and you can close it back up. So just some of the things that you can use the properties in conjunction with. Now, one of the very helpful, I think, items that you might want to have a field for, and usually it's put in the header or footer, is the path of where you can locate the document. We've all been through the exercise of trying to find a document that you know you created and you can't find it, and what folder and subfolder did you put it in. So again, in Insert, under Quick Parts, we have Field, and what we want is the Document Information field, and it says File Name. Now, even though the file name is not really what you want, over here you can check Add a Path, and then you can say OK, and here is the path of where that file is located, so it will show you the drive, the folder, the subfolders, etc. So that is something that is handy to have in the document while it's being worked on internally, or if it's an internal document, obviously you would take that out once if you were sending the document someplace else. Okay, so that's a little bit about the different fields, and as you can see, if I go back to all, you can see how many different fields there are about so many different things in the document. So some of which have to do with things like table of contents and all sorts of different things. Okay, let's talk a little bit about styles and that help you improve the consistency of your document. If I wanted to have this be my title, notice on the Home tab, you have all of these styles over here. And if I click on the More button, I have more styles, one of which is called Title, and so I'm going to click on that for Title. I'm going to select the kind of subtitle here, and I'm going to make that into, I'll use, let's say, heading 1 for that. Now, let's do subtitle. Okay, and then I'm going to go down and pick, let me separate this a little bit. I'm going to pick these kind of sub headings going down the document. I'm just going to pick the ones on the first page, I think, and I'm going to call those heading 1. Okay, so the power of doing it this way is that if I decide that the heading 1, I don't like the font they used, I don't like it's too big or it should be centered or whatever, I can right-click on heading 1. I can say modify, and I can modify anything about it. So let's say I decide I don't want it 16 point, I want it 14 point. Let's say I want it centered. Let's say I don't like the Arial. I want to pick, I don't know, Berlin, whatever. And let's say I don't want it black, I want it dark blue. And it's showing you here what it's going to look like. And notice down here, very important to indicate whether you want this change only in this document, which is the default, or whether you want that change to be saved with the template, in this case just the normal DOT, the normal document template. And if I save it with the template, that means when I open up a new document using this standard template, it will have these same characteristics for those styles. So I'm not going to do that. It's going to be only in this document. Another important thing down here is whether you want it to automatically update. And that you generally do, but not always, and I'll explain what that's about. If I say OK, and so it changed all of these subheadings the way that I indicated. And because I said automatically update, if I decide, no, it doesn't look good centered, I want it left aligned, I'm going to make the change here to the first, to one of the subheadings, and they're all going to change. Okay, because I said automatically update. Otherwise, it would have been only this one that changed, and I would have been manually making a change to that particular heading. Okay. You can also add your own specific different looks, different styles to certain items. So let's say I take a particular paragraph and I want to indent it on both sides. I want to make it look kind of like a quotation. And then I'm going to indent it on the right as well, 1/2 inch. And let's say I'm going to make it even on both sides, and let's say I'm going to make it italicized. So it kind of looks like a quotation. Now, they do have one that's called quote, so I'm going to make it something else. So I'm going to say create a style, and I'm going to call it my quote, just to make it different. And I'm going to say OK. And so I've created a style, and if I pick a different paragraph, and I go in here and I say I want to do my quote, it's going to look just like it. Okay, so this can be very powerful to use within lengthy documents, and especially if you do a certain grouping. Let's say you do a lot of proposals or you do a lot of reports, you can create a template for those kind of documents, report template and so forth, and then you can customize what your styles look like, and it's going to be much quicker than to format a document in that way. And it certainly will improve the consistency of the looks of your document. Okay, so now let's see something else you might want to put in a document. Sometimes we want to put what they call a pull quote, a little box that it has some very important information in it. And so I'm going to go to insert again, because it's something we're inserting in our document. And I'm going to go to text box. And within these text boxes, notice there's a whole bunch of different style of text boxes. I could, of course, just draw a box and create a plain, simple box, but I'm saying we want to do something with a little more style to it. And they each have a different name to them. And I'm going to pick one that I'm calling facet. Now they have facet quote, facet different things. Okay, I'm going to pick one that has this, facet sidebar. Okay, so not only does it have a box that's formatted in a certain way and has reset the margins and so forth so it can fit, but it also has a graphic attached to it. See that blue graphic? And of course I can modify this, whoops, in a lot of different ways. I can, if I don't need as much space, I can make it smaller and so forth. And notice that the, if I move this box, the text will rewrap and so forth. So it has a lot of nice properties to it, but I want you in particular to notice the style and the graphic that's attached to it. So I would select this text and either paste in or type in what I wanted that sidebar to say. And so in addition to that, what if I also needed a cover sheet, because this was a 10-page report. I could go to Insert, and all the way on the left in the Pages group is Cover Page. And notice that there are, 15 or 20 cover pages here, and they also have those same names to them. And if I pick the one that says Facet, notice it has a kind of matching graphic on it. So it has it at the top. So it provides you with a very consistent look. Now it's just picked up the first heading here, so obviously that's not the heading of my document, so I could put in whatever heading I wanted. Subheading, if I don't want a subtitle, I could simply delete it. So I can add in or delete anything I want. It has a place for an abstract from the document. It also has the software manager who is the author, which of course you could change if you wanted to, and so forth. So this is a cover sheet. If you decide you don't like that cover page, you could either just remove it or you could replace it with another one. I could click on this one and here's another one. So but what I wanted to show you is that if we do use the ones that have a similar name, you get a consistent graphic look to your document. Okay, so we have the same graphic here. Also, if I wanted to insert, let's say, footers, notice the footer also has the same different names. So I have Facet Footer, and in some cases you have a graphic there as well. I don't see a graphic on this one, but it might be on the other page. No, I don't see a graphic in that one, but some of them do have graphic looks to them. So it provides you with a way to get a consistent look to your document, which is a little more interesting and very fast to do, obviously. So another interesting way to make your document stand out, or to make a certain portion of it stand out, is you might want to use what we call a drop cap. And you've seen this in magazines and perhaps newspapers where the first letter of a paragraph stands out. And so that would also be an insert in the text area. And if you click on drop cap, the default, of course, is not to have one, is none. And then typically you want it dropped into the document, not out in the margin. So we're going to say drop cap, and it automatically uses the same font as your text, and it drops it 3 lines. But if I wanted to modify that in some way, I could go to drop cap options, and again, I want it dropped, but instead of Times New Roman, perhaps I want something that looks a little bit fancier, like some sort of script. And maybe I want it dropped 4 lines, and maybe I want to increase the distance from the text a little bit. And so I could say, okay, not sure that's an improvement because it's hard to tell what letter that is, but you get the idea. You can choose whatever font you want, how many lines you want it to drop, and how far you want it to be from the text. So that's another way that you can make your document more interesting, and it just takes a couple of clicks. Now, since this is a real document about real estate, I'm going to show you something else, and I'm going to go to a web page called realtor.com just to get a picture that I want to use for something. And meanwhile, I'm going to close down or minimize the other documents that we were using, and I'll explain why in a moment. We only want the document that we're going to be working with to be open and full screen. Okay, now let's see if I have the realtor.com. Okay, so let's say I say, okay, so here's some pictures. I just wanted to get something with a picture. So the idea is maybe I want to put a picture of this, whatever house it is, into my document. If I have the document that I'm interested in importing it open on my screen, which I do, and then I have all of the ones that I'm looking for, I can use in the document, insert, and then screenshot, okay? Screenshot. And that's the only screen I have open, so even though I can't read what's there, I'm going to say I want a clipping from that screen, and it's going to open that up and gray it out, and then I can pick, if this is the house I want to show, I can select that picture, and then it pops it right into my document, wherever I would like it to be, and I can move it over, and notice I have an ability to modify what it looks like. This is the options for wrapping. So I can wrap it top and bottom. I can wrap it all around. I can wrap it over or under or through, which makes no sense. But here you go. And as I move the picture, it rewraps my text to where it makes sense. So that's pretty interesting. So it's an easier way than having to go and copy some picture and come back and paste it and so forth. So you can insert a screenshot, or you can turn on, if you don't go to the clipping and you just click on the entire page, it'll give you the whole page. That's interesting that it only comes out in black. Usually you see the whole page and then you can select what you want by cropping. But the easier way to do that is to do a screenshot, and then you can crop it or select what you want right on the screen. So if anyone has any questions on those things we discussed, or perhaps on something else.
Ronnie, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Okay, I do training on Microsoft Office products, and I work with corporate groups, and I also work with individuals.
Yeah, and so all these recordings are going live. They're going to be on uscomputer.com/blogs. You could just go to our website. We are also live streaming on Facebook right now, and people are watching. So
that's exciting.
Yes, this is very exciting. This is our first time.
And at computertrainingsolutions.biz, B-I-Z, I will also put a recording of this in the next newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter with a tip, some sort of a tip on Excel or Word or PowerPoint, so you can sign up on that newsletter, and I'll put you on the list, and you can get those tips on a monthly basis.
Ronnie, what do we have next?
We have in April, on the 18th, I'm going to talk about and illustrate Excel text functions. So if you ever imported a whole list of names and they were all in uppercase, which made you want to scream, there's an easy way in Excel to change them to a standard first letter cap and so forth. So there's lots of useful text functions in Excel. And then in May, on the 22nd, we're going to do pivot tables.
Oh, yeah, that's a very popular one.
The most popular Excel subject of all. Everybody wants to know about pivot tables.
Okay. Well, awesome. Everyone on the East Coast, hope you stay safe today. Yep. And we look forward to presenting for the next one.
Okay.
Have a good one.
So long.
Bye, everyone.